identity in the Dominican Republic. And Kim and Monica bring two different perspectives for us to discuss what it means to be Dominican, how people came to be identified as Dominican, whether they were native as Taino, or they were African or European. So first we're going to have Kimberly Simmons. She is Professor of Anthropology and African American Studies at the University of South Carolina, and she's just told me she's going to be the new director of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies program at USC. And the name of her paper, her presentation is During the Sancocho and Seeing Africa, the Emergence of Afro-Dominican Identities in the Dominican Republic. This presentation is based on her book, Reconstructing Racial Identity in African Past in the Dominican Republic, which is published by the University of Press in Florida in 2009. Throughout this presentation, she will use Sancocho as a metaphor and to situate it in the context in which it emerged during slavery, to show how Dominican scholars and activists have organized around ideas of Afro-Dominicanness, referencing an African past, in order to reconstruct new identities for themselves and others, from Mestizo to Indio to Mulatto, Black, and Afro-Dominican. Without further ado, Dr. Simmons.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening.
Good evening.
As we say in the Dominican Republic, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Great to see everyone. It's wonderful to be here. First of all, I'd like to thank Lisa and Lorna for this invitation and for organizing this wonderful event. It's great to be a part of it this evening and to see the emphasis on the Dominican Republic this evening as well. As Lisa said, the title of my talk is Stirring the Sancocho and Seeing Africa, the Emergence of Afro-Dominican Identities in the Dominican Republic. And I want to move around just a little bit and talk about some of the slides here. What's important here, the way I'm situating identities and how Dominicans have come to see themselves, you know, if we think about the idea of race or nationally, culturally, etc., is in the context of the African diaspora. Looking at the transatlantic slave trade, looking at the Middle Passage, looking at some similarities based on that experience. When we're talking about Dominica, we're talking about the Dominican Republic, Brazil, Panama, United States. You know, based on this idea of a connectedness, a similarity because of that experience of slavery. But also recognize there are differences. You know, there are different European countries, you know, how there are differences in these different countries. But there are a lot of similarities at play. When we think about food, when we think about music, and some styles and things like that. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of that as we move forward. Sancocho is the national dish of the Dominican Republic. All right, and Nelly Rosario, who is a Dominican-American author, talks about it in this one piece. And let's just stop and think about this for 1 second, what Sancocho means in Spanish. Now, I think it's been removed from that meaning historically, but let's think about what it means here and how she talks about it. So the history of Sancocho, also Spanish for pig slop, just think about that for 1 second, is all about raising the least to the most, the ordinary to the extraordinary. And then she goes on to say, call us alchemists. African diaspora has always done what it could with what it's had, transmuting base metals into gold. We've turned table scraps into feast, dot, 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 dot. So the idea again of scraps, so it's not, again, that's something in the Dominican Republic. We talk about the United States. There are foods, you know, that were consumed, that were prepared, that were made, and handed down over generations, you know, the slaves, you know, ate. And so they have become part of traditions and different kinds of ways we remember, you know, the past. And that's the case with Sancocho. The Sancocho, as pictured here, is much like a hearty stew. You can have it on a cold night. You can have it like family celebrations. You know, you see it here. It has potatoes, corn, yuca, and different kinds of meat, chicken. Exactly. But I did most of my research in Santiago, which is the second largest city in the country. And as you know, as you can see here, Santo Domingo is the capital city there in the south. It's interesting to note that in terms of population, the majority of Dominicans live in Santo Domingo in the capital. Outside of that, the next largest population is in New York City. So completely outside the country, off the island. And then the third largest number is back in Santiago. And again, and as we talked about and heard a few minutes ago, this interesting relationship here exists between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. As you can see right here, same island, Hispaniola, divided, east and west side. Very interesting, a long history there with the Spanish and the French, and even today, I mean, how these play out. And so what I'm going to talk about is how identity, national identity, racial identity, has been constructed historically in relation to Haiti and in relationship to Haitians, and how that's changing, okay? So I've been trying to keep my finger on the pulse of how it's changing and why it's changing. It has a lot to do with kind of relationships with other people in the African diaspora. All right, so sign culture again, this idea of a mixture. So sign culture was used as a way of talking about mixture in the Dominican Republic. So one of my first questions years ago when I was trying to understand the idea of race, you know, just entering there, it's kind of hard to talk about race. Because we know we don't have one race. We're mixed people. You know, we're a Liga. We are, you know, that's how they would talk about it. We're Mexico. We're Liga or Mexico. That's how they would talk about that. And so the idea of being mixed, and so that mixture was often, you talk about it having a Taino past, you know, having, you know, European past, and then the African past. The African past, interestingly enough, was always the past that was buried. That was the past that was buried in the historical memory, in large part because of Rafael Trujillo, the dictator, you know, who really made a concerted effort to bury that past. And so I'm talking about how people, how activists, historians, how a lot of people now, just folks, I mean, folks who are kind of questioning their own history, but besides that, we have activists, you have Dominican anthropologists, sociologists, historians, etc., who are saying, wait, we didn't learn our complete history, you know, to understand what the African contribution was and who we are, you know, completely. So that's the part we're going to go. So anyway, so if they saw themselves historically as mixed, Dominicans, I mean Haitians, were black. So Dominicans saw Haitians as being black people, as being African-like and African descendant, and they learned that they were mixed people. Okay, so it's in the textbooks. I mean, I went through many textbooks and went through documents about how they were, you know, constantly described as being mixed people. So we're going to talk about that. So whereas in the United States we had the one-drop rule historically, and we're going there to kind of see it side by side. That's not what happened in the Dominican Republic. All right. So what happened to ideas of an African presence in Dominican blackness? All right, so Dominican blackness. And this is not to erase anything that, you know, again, in terms of who people are and all of their, everything they bring to it, in terms of their history, their ancestry. It's just to say that the African past had been buried. And so that's what we're looking at here. But it's interesting. A few years ago, I received a call from someone from the Miami Herald, a reporter, who said, oh, Dominicans denied that they're black. And she wanted me just to simply say that. She said, do they deny that they're black? And I said, well, I can't just simply say they deny that they're black. I said, I will say that their blackness was denied them. And then, well, she didn't quote that. She did not include that at all. She ran the piece, and I think the piece was blackness denied or something like that. So there was a lot of, you know, in New York and other places, people said, oh gosh, here we go again, that's not true. So I started thinking, what I tried to tell her in that piece was, I said, let's look at how blackness is talked about. Let's look at how Africanness and being African descendant is talked about. So there is this saying, black behind the ear. We all have a little black behind the ear, okay? So no matter what complexion, what your color, your light, your dark, it doesn't matter, you know? We all have a little black behind the ear. So that's the saying. I'll tell you later. So that's the saying. So you can't deny it. It's there. It's hidden. You know, that's the idea. It's hidden, but it's there. It's there. So it's kind of relegated to this part that you don't see every day. So that's the idea that it's there. Okay. The other one is you walk around on this side. And your grandmother, where is she? Right. Now we know she's in the kitchen.
She's
that's
in the kitchen.
She's in the kitchen. So she's hidden too. We don't see her. We know she's in there.
Right.
She's in the kitchen.
Right.
That's the idea. So she's there. You know, she's there. And that's the idea of the San culture with all these ingredients and all this. It's like the African past and ideas of Dominican blackness is all like at the bottom of the pot. It's there. It's in there. With everything else, with the Taino past, with the European immigration, with all the other Caribbean migrants, it's there. But it's at the bottom of the pot. So that's the idea. All right. So in effect, the African past is buried, and again, so at the bottom of the pot. So I said, okay, let's talk about the buried nature of this versus denial. They're not, if they're saying black, they're black behind the ear, if the grandmother's in the kitchen, okay, it's there, but what kind of importance does it have? She's over here, it's kind of hidden, you know, tucked away. But something that's changing. Okay, all right. And so we're in the process now, of remembering or having to remember or needing to remember. So you go down here, this part of the quote, we call it Black amnesia. This ideology that, to minimize or refuse to acknowledge, the African presence, thinking about music, religion, food, dance, gestures, adornments, aesthetics, social, etc. All these things, not to mention the physical aspect. So again, it's there. But what are folks doing with that? And why is that the case? I mean, again, that's something that's learned. It has been learned over time. All right, the sign culture in India. Dominican American scholar Sylvia Flores wrote about this. He's someone who really has a long history talking about some of these ideas of Dominican blackness. And he talks about here the use of the term indio. Now, have y'all heard that term indio that's used in the Dominican Republic? It's used in a way, indio translated from Spanish means Indian, just literal translation. But the way that it's used there, it's not to say somebody is Indian or light Indian, dark Indian. That's not the actual meaning of it. The way it is translated, and the way it's meant, is when you say somebody's light skin, brown skin, dark skin, that kind of thing. Okay, so you get the idea. And that's how, African Americans a lot of times, it's not just here. I mean, in Brazil, it's all throughout the diaspora. There are ways of talking about skin color and saying somebody's light skin, dark skin. But the term that they use there is indio. So you would use indio claro, which is light skin, basically. Indio oscuro, dark skin. So there you have those kinds of distinctions there. But it's interesting because if you go back, and then I went back and reading to see why indio, and so indio again meaning Indian. So the dictator Rafael Trujillo used it in large part, again, referring back to the Tainos. And I know Monica's going to talk a lot about her talks in the field Tainos. But the idea, this is the idea, that there were a range of shades. So why we can use this term indio because it does not at all represent any, it's not mulatto, because mulatto suggests African ancestry. Taino can represent mixture, and that's how it was used. But it does not bring to mind African ancestry at all. So this, void of that. So that was the idea. If you go back and look at some of the documents during the Trujillo regime, you'll see some of that it was used purposefully because it did not suggest African ancestry. It was the same as for mestizo. Now mestizo typically, in many places throughout Latin America, mestizo, means mixed, but generally I think we think of it as indigenous European mixture, right? Well, there it was used on the census for many years to represent, anybody who was mixed. Mulatto is a recent, category there. For the same reason, again, that idea of burying the African past because of what Africa represented in the minds of the elite, and again, how there were negative attributes associated with Haitians and Haiti